Welcome to BiogasWorld's webinar on navigating the US biogas and RNG market in 2026, featured as part of this week's Biogas and RNG Online virtual event. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared to participants following the webinar. In addition, if you have any questions for our presenters, we invite you to write them in the Q&A tab, and we will ask our panelists during the Q&A period. I would like to thank our presenters for joining us today. Paul Greene, Principal at GreeneTec, John Dinneen, Biogas Engineering and Construction at Mead&Hunt, and Matias Miguez, Vice President of Business Development at Kingsbury Construction. This event is featured as part of our Biogas and RNG Online event, taking place on our Biogas Community website over the course of this week. This event brings together all corners of the biogas and RNG industry together in a virtual format accessible across boundaries. Join us asynchronously throughout the week as we delve into various industry subsectors. Before we begin our discussion, each of our panelists will have a few minutes to present their organizations and their work in the industry. Our first introduction is by Paul Greene. Paul runs a US-based RNG biogas advisory business. He was the first founding member of the American Biogas Council in 2015 and its first elected chair. He hosts the Biogas TV weekly biogas industry live stream every Monday. Paul, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. You hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you for having me, Biogas World. I greatly appreciate the opportunity. So in my practice, I collaborate with all kinds of investors and developers on advising them on biogas projects, food waste, crop residues, dairy, poultry, landfill gas. I came out of a number of EPC firms over time, like Montrose and CDM Smith and Ramble. So have expertise in building projects and team building. I'm a chemical engineer by schooling, so I enjoy the technical side of things. So I also formally collaborate with some amazing brands. I've got formal relationships with companies like POC, their BioPOC system, and their BioCyclone system, a new system for sand separation. Do a lot of work with IVUS and their gas upgrading systems. Sentry makes a great online VFA analyzer, and a new company called Captivate. They have a new process for ultra low OpEx gas upgrading. So Biogas TV is a brand that seems to be sticking. We've tried a number of different iterations on it, and a weekly cadence on Mondays is working great. We run for half an hour at noon Eastern. So find us at biogas.tv, or please find me on LinkedIn. I'll get you an invitation to register for that, but it's free, and we have some wonderful discussions about industry trends and features some industry thought leaders doing some terrific, innovative work. For the next 2 months, we're having some of the nominees of a new initiative we've got called the Giants of Biogas. It's an award program that will be awarded in the Detroit conference in May. So we've had some great speakers like Clemens Haleen, the leader of the Chicago Digester Project. Coming up, we've got Brian Paganini coming in from the Hartford, Connecticut project. So people that have been living, breathing biogas projects coming onto the show. So yeah, thanks again, Ryan, for this opportunity.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Welcome to have you. Our next panelist is John Dinneen. John develops waste energy projects at Mead&Hunt, specializing in biogas and RNG solutions. He guides projects from technical analysis to turnkey EPC delivery, optimizing production from diverse feedstocks. Passionate about renewable energy, John fosters partnerships that reduce waste and enhance environmental impact. John.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Also, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And at Mead&Hunt, yeah, we're an engineering and construction company. We deliver turnkey projects. We're technology agnostic, so we don't focus on any particular technologies. What we're really good at is integrating various different technologies into a holistic project. As a company, we're heavy on process engineers. One of the things we always highlight about ourselves is we do have a full suite of all the engineering disciplines in-house that are required to deliver a biogas project. everything from civil to mechanical to electrical, and especially controls is one of the areas we like to focus some attention on, that we see as kind of being unique to our company. We have about 1,400 employees, offices in around 40 offices across the country, entirely in the United States. My role at the company is I do opportunity development for any biogas project that could go EPC delivery. So I'm in our biogas group. We do landfill projects, digester projects, and kind of all the tangentially related stuff to this biogas world. Personally, I'm located in Ohio. And so, yeah, that's kind of the summary of our company.
Great. Thanks, John. Our final panelist today is Matias Miguez. Matias is the Vice President of Business Development for Kingsbury Companies, a construction, modular container manufacturing, and O&M service provider located in Vermont, working nationwide on biogas projects. Working in design and construction of biogas plants since 2008 and an American Contractor Association Best Builder Award 2023 for the construction of Salisbury 81. He currently works with developers and vendors to design and build projects, as well as head the Department of Pre-Engineer Solutions. Matias.
Yeah, well, same. Thank you for having me here in the panel. No, I think this is great opportunities on this field. About Kingsbury, we started building in 1978. We are a heavy civil contractor that we specialize in biogas since 2008, when we first start building one of our first power plants, out of landfill here in Vermont. Also very familiar with the Cow Power initiative when everything kind of started up here in the East Coast. We're not only in the biogas market, we also interact with, we own a couple of solar plants. We also interact with battery storage, hydroelectric. So we are very focused on kind of what's going on on other markets, not just biogas, and how they take to interrelate. We do offer construction management services. We have crews that they build the projects. We work in pre-construction and the construction itself all the way to commissioning. And we have an area that is our manufacturing, where we do customize the whole entire plant. We'll put it in containers just to maximize the time of construction. And also, we believe that reduces a lot of cost to our clients. And on the other side, we own a section that we provide like owner and maintenance services for biogas plants and sewer. We have a whole sewer division for wastewater treatment plants. So.
Great, thank you. Kicking off our discussion today, from your perspective, how do you see the market evolving in the US? Are there any project types you project will experience an increase over the next few years? Matias, do you want to start the discussion?
Yeah, I think that we're all, every single week is kind of like changing, where are we waiting about kind of what policy is doing, what the startups are doing. So I think we're in a phase that we're trying to become very creative on kind of what we're seeing. Also, I think that there's a lot of new technologies and new markets that they could be developed, I think that what is going on with data centers and AI and their requirements for power are in demand. And I see that not only in the biogas community, I see it also in the battery storage community. I see it, also in just some of our peers in energy sectors. Hydroelectric has a big area. I do believe that it's helping a little bit to become more creative, also to some other companies to, to find the possibilities to build some of their products here in the United States. We just actually, it might be creating other opportunities. So.
Great, thank you. Paul, do you want to follow up with that?
Sure. There's definitely some rays of light here that we're looking out at to carry the industry forward some. A huge one is maritime. So we've been watching the requirements of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. They have this net zero framework that they've been working on. And it came up for a vote for the first time last October, and it got defeated. But there does seem to be a lot of support for it. It'll be coming up for a vote again this coming October. And if that was to get approved, the volumes of RNG, let's call it bio LNG or LBM, liquefied biomethane, going into ships, commercial cruise lines would be huge. It would be an enormous offtake opportunity. Some concerns are whether the industry will acknowledge the biogas community's need to account for avoided methane or not. Some of these cruise lines that are now buying LNG fueled ships, they're used to paying, $5 a unit for their natural gas, and we are trying to sell it to them for $25. So, I joke that my charter in life when I get out of bed in the morning is telling people why they should buy $25 gas instead of $5 gas. It's always a challenging explanation, but that will be live and well in this IMO. Liquefied biomethane. So there will be some projects now where people will be starting to look at liquefaction of RNG, and typically you're probably going to try to put that into a ship. CO2 recovery is a trend, seeing some deals come together with some long-term offtake opportunities of the CO2. Some of the food and beverage industry is now underserved because of a lack of capacity. Most of that CO2 has been coming from the ethanol industry. Some of that CO2 is now going to sequestration from ethanol. And so that leaves some of the food and beverage industry underserved. So typically it's in the coasts that there's hunger for more supply. Some of these food and beverage users near the coastlines are trucking CO2 for 200-300 miles. So that is an opportunity. Also, recovered CO2 as a source of biogenic carbon. So as a chemical backbone for some of these interesting molecules like methanol, like sustainable aviation fuel. There's some newer companies out there that we're tracking that are getting well into the piloting stages of, typically they're taking biomethane, CH4, pyrolyzing it, gasifying it, building new molecules through processes like the Fischer-Tropsch process. So they are in their kind of nascent phases, a bit of the higher risk kind of time, but these pilots are starting to play themselves out and to prove these new molecules out. And the hunger by the aviation industry for green fuels like SAF is out there. Do they want to pay for it is another question, but seeing blends of aviation fuel 1%, 2%, 3% is definitely up and coming. Canadian CFR, seeing opportunities there. The pricing is looking very favorable for the next 2 to 3 years to send RNG up across the border. Some things we're watching are some type of incentives for domestically produced in Canada low CI gas to meet those CFR requirements. If this is of interest to you, if you go to www.biogas.tv, we've been recording several recent episodes. I think it's season 3, episodes 3, 4, and 7 have experts on there talking about the Canadian CFR. So I'd encourage you to check those out. Municipal is seeing activity. Companies like Energia, pick one, municipal public-private partnership collaborations where municipalities typically have a digester that's underutilized. Third-party financing will come in, finance the gas upgrader, go find additional substrate to boost the gas yield. So those can be appealing long-term deals where the local ratepayers back the projects and they can find some long-term financing. So it seems like there's a little bit of a gap in the market for like in the 2 to 3 year short-term window, seeing a lot of interest in sending US gas to Canada or maybe maritime. In the 5 to 10 year window, some of these alternative fuels, I think, will show some good promise, taking CO2 and reprocessing it for its biogenic properties. There's a gap here in like the 3 to 5 year window that we need some new policy to maybe help us out to find places to send gas for that 3 to 5 year window. But lastly, a couple of bright lights in the organics diversion space to send feedstocks to digestion. Digesters can struggle to compete with landfills in the open market, but New Jersey has a law now that's kicking in to create more substrate for biogas digester projects. So projects in the Mid-Atlantic and the Metro New Jersey area are seeing availability of feedstock now that the new diversion policies are kicking in. But we like to see more landfill diversion policies because we believe AD is technically or environmentally superior to landfilling organic wastes. So that is a good cause for optimism for more feedstock to send to digestion. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Great, thank you. John?
Yeah, some of this is going to be echoing what Paul said. I guess to take a quick step back, 2025 was kind of the year of the pushed back project for us, and I think a lot of the industry. A lot of the developers kind of spent 2025 just pushing back, waiting to see how things were going to shake out. Offtakes were harder to secure, and that still is a challenge, no doubt. I guess another kind of bleak spot more recently has been there have been a few European-based technology providers who have either formally or informally basically exited the U.S. market recently. So there continue to be challenges, but I'm always the optimist, and so I'll focus on some areas where I see bright spots in the future, and I think there are plenty of them. Landfill gas remained steady through last year and into this year for us. The pool of potential projects continues to dwindle, but there's still enough out there that when it comes to inquiries we receive, I think it remains fairly steady, and that's true for final project delivery as well. Setting landfill to the side, I guess, which is generally not my primary focus. I'm more into the digester type projects. What I've seen in the past month or two is starting to be a bit of a resurgence in developer activity. The inquiries we get is kind of how I gauge where the future is going, and that can be for project type and amount of projects. I guess from what I'm hearing, the project funders, financiers are starting to look for places to put money again after they were kind of moving slow last year as well. Maybe the 45Z rulings, clarity on that has helped, but we're starting to feel like some of these projects that were just absolutely frozen in ice last year are starting to thaw and starting to tiptoe back towards some movement. In terms of the types of projects, so again, based on inquiries we're getting in the first quarter of this year, that are projects that at first look seem well vetted out and have potential to move forward. Municipal biogas continues to be low-hanging fruit. Public-private partnership model seems to be a really effective path there. So they're definitely is a lot of activity in that market. Food waste digestion, whether that's source separated organics or digesting food waste from industrial manufacturing processes. I think those continue to be fairly bright looking spots for the future. The biggest challenge with the source separated organics and the industrial food waste, I would say, is where to site those facilities, how to deal with the digestate, and how to do a project where your neighbors are not in opposition to it being located there. Material recovery facilities, so landfill diversion, especially facilities that would digest the organic fraction of municipal solid waste. I think there have been I'd say a decent number of RFPs put out by municipalities and counties in the past 6 months. So I think that's starting to look like a bright spot. Animal manure had really tailed off. We'd been seeing less inquiries about like dairy manure, for example, which was seemingly this industry's bread and butter for so long. And we have had a few, I'd say, well-vetted, kind of qualified looking dairy manure projects come across recently. So that's been good to see. Ag residuals is something that's fairly future looking, but I think there's some developers who are getting ready to advance some projects in that area. And then future fuels, the methanol, SAF, we're seeing activity there as well. Definitely, we would love to see the maritime ruling advanced. That would be really big for our industry. I don't know what my personal level of optimism is about that in the short term, whether we'll get something meaningful, but we've been close, and if we can get it to the goal line, that would be huge in some form similar to what's been talked about. And then that regionalized opportunity to monetize projects further with CO2 capture. I think it's highly regional, but the spots where those prices are high, the impact that can have on project financials is really big. So we're expecting to definitely see an uptick in CO2 capture projects for dry ice or food and beverage.
Great, thank you. So as the market changes, how have you adapted to new conditions? What advice might you share with someone investigating whether to pursue a project right now? Matias, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I definitely share some of how some projects they dry out last year. It was incredible. I think we were all experiencing we were all very optimistic about how many plants, and listening everyone through trade shows, how the biogas was just really increasing. And then somehow we just got into a little bit of a slowdown process. I do share with John that I think that there are some developers that they're just coming out and saying, hey, I have this project, and we're seeing some of those projects are remaining from some moments that they started some projects, so they can still get some of the credits, and they're selling those projects to other developers that they see advantage on that. So I see like some of the leads and opportunities that we're seeing in our area are more related to optimization of or retrofits of sites that they're already in operations, in which we got certain pumps, we find out that certain existing plants can get some new things. So for us, there's a lot of work that has been into maximizing efficiency of the plants that we have already. So in part of our pipeline, we are working right now on designing and construction of benefiting from maximizing what we have. The other thing is because we have been involved with the battery storage market, we have been very exposed to trying to integrate CHP with battery storage systems, and I do believe that there's a lot of if you understand the economics of how that works and the different peak prices on electricity, I think that there's a lot of lot of good in that area. We are currently also investigating on trying to make some of the heating of the plants of a digester just more efficient, through the use of battery heat systems, so we can use as much as we can from the plant. We are working very due diligent with during the pre-construction phase of these projects, just to try to optimize as much as we can every single method of energy to reduce one capex. The other thing is reduce the opex. We are in discussions a lot into how much really is costing some owners more than kind of what they expected in the operation cost. So our job in the last 3 months has been really just changing some of the pumps that we're using, like a lot of controls, like a lot of upgrading control systems. So we have a lot of that in the pipeline. And that's in terms of us, we're still strong on our modular container division. No, we are actually completing here in the next month. We're going to have 2 new plants that they're going to come into operation. That we're excited about working on that. And then we have right now a lot of orders for containers that we're working in pre-construction and also putting them in our fabrication. So that's kind of where we are.
Great, thank you. Paul?
So I'd encourage people to get into the business, but let's look at costs. So I think to be able to afford some of the economics wherever possible, reducing costs from what we've typically seen, pick a number, in dairy, $175 per MMBTU per year kind of costs. How can we get those down through cheaper materials? We've had a lot of chaos with the tariffs as a uncertainty, but on the upside of costs, we've seen hungrier suppliers getting more aggressive on pricing. So that can be a sign of hope for pulling costs down. Also seeing some cost savings in different delivery methods as the space is maturing. Early on, 5-10 years ago, lenders would require the EPC one throat to choke wrap, where risk was very tightly focused on the EPC. And I think people now are open to models like cost plus and are seeing some reductions in overall cost, where you've got various layers of contingency on top of markup. And so looking at taking a fresh look at some project delivery methods, I think is worth doing. Some other technologies are coming around. Let's say in the dairy space, all the low-hanging fruit's been picked, all the scraped dairies on fiber. Those are the easy ones. Now we got the tough ones. You've got the flush dairies, you got the sand bedders, you got the dairies that are kind of further away from the pipeline. There's some new technology out there for sand separation. So as the dairy industry went wild back in 2020, people kind of went into this a little bit aggressively, and we had a lot of tanks fill up with sand along the way. So like this POC biocyclone sand separator is showing some great hope to desand the feed, so you're not filling your digester with it. So I'd also just encourage the industry, if we want to continue to grow, to be able to talk to these investors in a way where we have our collective act together. There's been some projects in the news of late where you read about foam over events or some safety issues or odor issues. So just making sure that the projects we're putting in, just everybody doubling down on doing things in a way that we can be proud of. I want to keep staying vigilant on that. But that would be what I'd have to offer.
Great, thank you. John?
Yeah, one of the side effects of developers being more in that kind of wait and see mode for a chunk of last year was that they were less driven by schedule. And previously, for years and years prior to 2025, everything was all about speed to market, and practically every developer that we would work for, schedule was their number one thing. They wanted to compress the schedule as much as possible. As an EPC, that's one of the things that our delivery method is best at. It's the reason that EPC is generally looked at for these types of projects, is because we can compress the schedule, that and the single point of responsibility. But with there being less schedule driven project requests over the past year, we've seen projects that traditionally would have gone EPC that maybe they were looking for design bid build or some other scope split that's not a full wrap. So in terms of how we've adapted to these new market conditions, we've just become more flexible on scope split, being willing to work as part of the team where, as an EPC, there's an opportunity for us to take some piece of the pie. We've definitely have become more flexible on what is in scope versus out of scope for us, and what that looks like. And of course, that does change the risk allocation profile. So in most cases where we're doing something other than a full wrap, it actually means less risk for us, and there may be the ability to deliver a project at a lower cost too. Advice I would share with someone investigating this market, pursuing a project, I'll mention 45Z again, which I think is partially responsible for some of these projects unfreezing. The runway on that is limited, so it was extended to the end of 2029, which sounds pretty far out, but for a project developer that isn't currently building the project, they're hoping to in the near future. Even if we're starting construction today on a 12-month project, that puts us into 2027 when a facility is generating revenue. That would give that project owner 2 years and some change of capturing those 45Z credits. So there's reasons to still be pretty focused on schedule, given the runway for 45Z, if that's important for a financial pro forma. So I think that's a piece of advice I would have is to 2029 seems pretty far out there until you start looking at how long it takes to build a project. It's not forever. Let's see. There was mention earlier of safe harbored investment tax credits still floating out there, and that's something we still do see a lot of activity around, is equipment that has been safe harbored to capture investment tax credit. That also has a very discrete timeline attached to it, with projects needing to be completed by end of next year. So we do see these couple of, we have become more flexible on scope split and not necessarily needing a full wrap. We are seeing some drivers where project owner developers are starting to look with a very serious eye at delivery timelines again, and see that as becoming a pretty important driver for some projects throughout the rest of this year. Other than that, site selection is really important, being in an area where you're not going to have local opposition, and then how will the digestate be handled, which is also related to site selection. I think those continue to be two really important factors that as a developer, you don't want to go in with rose-colored glasses. You want to look at this clearly, and not go with your best case assumptions. Maybe have everything goes great plan. Here's kind of middle of the road. There may be some challenges, and worst case scenario, and really think through each of those scenarios when it comes to site selection and digestate.
Great, thank you. Before we get into our next question, I'd just like to remind everybody that they can use the Q&A function if there's any questions you'd like the panel to address later in the webinar. So do you believe projects will continue to opt for RNG production, or do you think CHP projects will see a rise in popularity over the coming years? Matias?
This is a very normal question I get asked. But actually, I'll share one of the questions that someone asked me. It was where do you think that we should just stop looking at this project? We should just switch to other technologies, other options. I think that there's a lot of them that they're kind of mentioned right here by Paul and John. But one of the things about that, I kind of mentioned kind of what John was saying here. It is that there's a timing thing here. It is like when you get into a community or like an environment where you're going to need a lot of permitting, just that's time that it takes to get to that development. So if the RNG, if you have a plant that can generate a lot of RNG, if you have a landfill that you can actually start looking at develop, I think that policy will dictate that if the people need it, we're going to have to produce it. Like I know I'm very optimistic about RNG production, and I really think that it can be well integrated with CHPs also. So I will definitely believe that we need to continue working on developing some of those sites. I still think about that definitely CHP is going to get some popularity here in these coming years. I can see that there's some companies, some technology providers, and this came out a little earlier. I think that I'm not sure if John said it or Paul, but there's some companies that they switch some of their, instead of actually building more upgraders here in the United States, they're switching to just selling their CHP units. So I think that there is. I don't think I'm very optimistic about that. If you have a project and you have like the dairies and you have a large farm, I think you should still looking into developing. The other thing, it is just possibly you can look into food waste and see if you can. This is all about how much gas you're going to produce, and if you can just get some cow manure, some dairy, and mix it with some food waste. You're gonna be able to generate more gas, and the more gas that you generate, the more that you're gonna be able to justify your performance. So I still think about that there is market for RNG. And I think that this is also about timing. If we don't continue working what we have, I think policy might. The economics of the world will actually dictate that we need more of these type of technologies, no matter if it's electricity or if it is LNG, if it's RNG. That's my perspective, and that's why I continue working every day hard and optimizing design from pre-construction, and be sure that we find technologies that they reduce OpEx, on the tail of the project.
Great, thank you, Paul.
So I think we're looking at a couple different categories of biogas to tend to. So say there's easy gas and there's tough gas. So the easy gas would be, say, dairy. Easy gas is easy to upgrade, a lot less pre-treatment, a lot less propensity to scale or foul. I'd kind of put food waste in that category as well. Pretty benign. Sometimes it's got VOCs and terpenes and things, but the tough gas, I think, will always be leaning towards electricity. So landfill gas, you've got oxygen, nitrogen, siloxanes, VOCs, things that take a lot more cost to filter out. There's some landfill gas trains where you start with your mixed gas, you're trying to get to your methane at the end, and there's 6, 7, 8 different filtration steps along the way to strip out all else that's in there. And I would say municipal is a tough gas. Municipal's got hydrogen sulfide. It's got a lot of siloxanes. And so, yes, people are trying to do RNG at municipal wastewater digesters, but the engine is really geared well to the dirtier gas. It just is. And so the landfill gas grew up on engines, and there'll still be a spot for engines. There's some other kind of boutique spots for generating electricity in our industry, like self-generation on some projects where people like to microgrid to make their own power for things like their blowers and their mixers and their compressors. So like the big Linden, New Jersey project in New York City, I think it's the biggest project in the country. They self-generate, they've got their Bloom fuel cells, and they kind of can isolate from the general grid, and they're using so much power that self-generating has an appeal. California, as a last example, they're always in their own world with their policy. So there's some ag digester developers that are using the mainspring linear generator out there to make power due to favorable policy and incentives that drive that. But I think we'd all love to see an AI-driven data center fueled by waste. You know, a big plant for us is 10 megawatts. An average data center is 50 megawatts and up. So just being able to agglomerate all of that waste to a project site and to have a green electricity data center, I think we're still a ways off there, but those are my observations.
Great, thank you. And John?
Yeah, well, I think what a lot of project developers, when they're evaluating how to use their gas, what they want is steady and predictable. RINs have continued to be relatively steady and has been a proven way to monetize a project. So at the margin, has there maybe been some shift to CHP for projects that would have sat on that boundary previously? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think for projects where you have reasonable proximity to an interconnect and the fee to actually connect to that natural gas pipeline is reasonable, I think projects that traditionally have gone RNG will continue to go that way. I have heard some pretty crazy prices for the interconnect fee at a few sites recently. Well north of 3 million, which that can swing things in a big way when it comes to deciding whether or not RNG is the way to go. So CHP, yes, absolutely continues to be important. I view it more generally for the smaller biogas flows. And I guess CHP also generally is going to be for parts of the country where you have higher electricity prices. If you've got cheap electric in Iowa, it's going to be tough to choose a CHP project over RNG if the RNG is near a pipeline. And then one other thing, we mentioned data centers a couple times, and I was kind of curious leading into this call. So I'm not the CHP expert in our group, but Matt Quinn is. But so I messaged him in the lead up to this call, and I was kind of curious, are CHP vendors, are they keeping their focus on biogas? I know they have a ton of demand from data centers for CHP and reciprocating engines that would be fueled by fossil fuel gas. And I was curious if that's led to any changes in lead times. And the response I got back was for reciprocating generators over 2 megawatts. Yeah, it's gone up dramatically. We recently got quoted between 120 and 130 weeks lead time for recip CHP that was over 2 megawatts. That one was 2.5, I guess. For ones that are less than 2 megawatts, we're still 40 to 60 weeks. So I think when you start looking at bigger project scales, if you're needing larger CHP engines, that lead time due to competition with data centers and other on-site power generation outside of our biogas industry is potentially going to become a significant part of that equation as well.
Great, thank you. Got a bit of time, so we'll pull some questions from the Q&A here. An interesting one. So someone's recently visited a methanation pilot process using green hydrogen at an AD site. Is this common in the US or something that's in development?
definitely in development. There's some old school ways to do methanation. There's some newer ones. Some of the, I think the biomethanation, I think, is pretty fascinating, where it's a special bacteria, archaea bacteria, that if you feed it a CO2 and you feed it an H2, out pops CH4. And the methanation concept came up 40, 50 years ago in the refining industry. So some of that chemistry is pretty tried and true, how to get chemically from CO2 to CH4, but the driver is always your hydrogen. How do you make your low-cost hydrogen? Is it from a solar-powered driven electrolyzer? The vernacular is always dollars per kilo, and if it costs you $3 to $4 per kilo to make your hydrogen, and you need to be at $1 to $2, then there's a kind of a swing and a miss there. So until the hydrogen pricing gets closer to $1 a kilo, we're a ways off.
Matias, John, do you guys want to jump in on, or?
Nothing major to add other than, I'm always happy to hear about demo facilities piloting these new technologies. So that's the way we break down technical barriers. So, but yeah, in terms of, is it common? No.
Yeah, and for me, I kind of go a little bit with kind of what John was saying, is that it's especially with retrofitting, if we can generate more efficiencies and generate a different source of alternative fuel it's more economically feasible for the plant, I think we're all open to those type of technologies.
Great, thanks. And Matias, you mentioned that a lot of clients are looking to improve the OpEx. So what do you think are the lowest hanging fruits for pursuing that?
I always think about that when it comes to OpEx, when you're doing the pro forma, it's like everyone has their own kind of methods. And in our case, we come from operations, working pretty much in the dairy and in landfills. So we replace a lot of the equipment. So we have numbers that kind of prove the right OpEx. When you have that OpEx and the OpEx increase, then pretty much your pro forma is just going down, So I do believe that have a good handle on OpEx is very important in the initial stage of your project, where your heat is going to come in, how much, if you have any losses in your systems, did you analyze the losses of your whole entire digester, your feed tank? I think that from seeing when I started in 2008 building these biogas plants to right now, I think the improvements in technology has been and engineering has been really, really incredible. So I hope I answered the question.
Thanks. And Paul, John, do you want to jump in on the OpEx side?
There's no doubt that OpEx moved much more to front of mind, as some of the credit prices were dropping over the past 12 months. It became very much front of mind. And there are lots of clever ways in the concept design and preliminary engineering stage to affect OpEx. And when I'd say for project developers, driving your EPC to deliver a facility that's going to be the lowest possible OpEx, I think keeping that in front of their mind is also a really good strategy. No doubt it's become more important recently.
I'll offer 4 things. So one thought is voluntary sale price of RNG for long-term offtake have come down from about $25 down to about $15. So if you're selling RNG for $15 and your pure OpEx to make it is $15, no spread there, right? So then you quickly say to yourself, well, my upgrader probably costs $7 to $9 per MMBTU to run. How much does my digester cost to run? But price is being down and if OpEx is double digits, the ability to make margin is tough. So got to drive OpEx out however you can. So things like time to mixing. Do you have to run your mixers 24 hours a day? Can you run them 2 hours a day? Worth looking at to save power. H2S can be a big OpEx driver. So people have been trying a mixture of add oxygen, add ferric chloride, trying to reduce their dry media costs. So dollars per pound of sulfur removed, $4 or $5 isn't uncommon. Some of the biological scrubbers are more like $1 a pound of sulfur removed, so worth looking at. And outages due to sand accumulation in tanks is a huge OpEx. And let's be smart about sand. Keep it out of the digester so you're not taking your tank down more than every 5 years to desand it. That's what I got.
Thanks. Matias, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I was going to say what Paul was saying. It is like from discussing on what we're seeing right here for items that we're discussing is sand separation. I think Paul mentioned it about like new technologies to be able to handle that sand separation before it goes to the digester. They're coming. We are seeing a lot of just OpEx costs just on just getting the digester just fill up with sand, and that minimize the volume that you have in your digester, your gas generation, and then just the cost of cleaning a digester. When you are designing, you gotta be sure that you are designing for how this digester is going to be operating. More parts inside, more mixers with more parts that they can break. It is going to be what's going to happen with OpEx right here, and you may not be seeing some of the things that may happen in the future.
Great, thank you. Another question we've got here, maybe from the EU, they're saying they see a lot of plants using biomass boilers to reduce carbon footprint, carbon intensity in their biogas plants. Is this a thing developers or EPCs are looking at in North America?
I haven't seen much evidence of it because brown gas is so cheap. We're awash in brown gas. It's $3-4 per MMBTU, and the incentives to go to biomass aren't that strong to have you not just use brown fossil gas to drive your boiler because it's so cheap.
Nothing to add. Yep.
Yeah, I'm just. I'll have to see just the cost of the biomass plant and how that affects to the performance of the project.
Yeah, great, thanks. Maybe one more question we'll look at. So how does social acceptability towards biogas and RNG play a role? Is this something you notice when you've been working on projects that it's front in mind for developers, or how are they, taking initiative to reach out to their future communities?
Yeah, this gets back to the siting concern that I've raised a couple times. There are some high-profile examples of this NIMBY, not in my backyard, killing projects. So I think project developers, especially if you're going to be doing food waste, especially if you're going to be bringing in waste from outside of the specific county that you're in, which for most regional facilities, that's going to be the case. But I've seen truck traffic be a big sticking point, odor concerns be a big sticking point. And then just kind of, I would call it miscellaneous or general concerns about what potentially hazardous materials might be in the digester. I think concerns about hazardous materials are generally something that's a boogeyman that's not real. But it becomes a concern. I've seen it pop up in some of these cases. So I think the more you're able to be proactive about engaging the local community. And when it comes to things like odors and truck traffic, those are very real concerns. And there probably have been some facilities that were cited in areas where to realistically feed their system, the amount of truck traffic would have been a real burden to that immediately local community. that weren't well thought out and taken care of. So I think that's what I would point developers towards, is dispel the quick and easy ones, like the idea that there's going to be hazardous material in the digester that poses a safety risk to the community. But then the ones that are real concerns, just get ahead of it, show that you've thought about those things, and try to engage the local community. The mindset of we'll hope to fly under the radar until we're permitted, it can backfire, and we've seen it backfire.
Just a couple things on that. I give a hat tip to the American Biogas Council on a 15-second clip that they ran in 2025 that got something like 20 million views through Google Ads, just promoting the benefits of biogas. It's MAGA, it's homegrown energy, and the data shows that once people are educated on what these systems are like, that they become in favor. A lot of the resistance comes from not fully understanding. And I think we as an industry, there are some great projects out there that have gotten like 0 neighbor odor complaints. And we need to promote those stories better because they're out there. And yeah, as truck traffic seems to be the big sticking point, there are some nationally organized environmental groups that are out to get us. They especially the whole farming side of things, they're very against corporate farms. We're all supposed to have a cow and a bunch of chickens in our backyard, and corporate farms are no good. So they feel like we're enablers of big corporate farming. So we certainly, in this era of social media and YouTube, it's kind of funny some of the stuff they come up with, but definitely very real concern.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything, Matias?
Yeah, I do actually. It is interesting because I had the opportunity also to work in South America, with some, and then I go with what Paul and John was saying here is knowledge. It's once you know this type of technologies, we are already picking something that it's going to the soil right now, and we're treating it and actually making something that it just has more nutrients, So then when you really, if you have the right professionals that they're just discussing about the benefits that these are bringing to those communities, it really bring to light some positive things here. But not only from the possibility of just getting gas. I think like odor control, there's a lot of like poultry and swine industry where creates these really large like wound digesters that they in a community, they will just there's a lot of like odor complaints, nitrogen where it goes to a lake here in Vermont. We have a very strong environmental requirements to kind of what we can put in the soil, and we have been getting a lot of grants just for trying to control that nitrogen, just was phosphorus going into soils. I mean, so I think that once you go into a community and you outline the benefits of this, it's the way to do it.
Great, thank you. And we're approaching the end of the hour here, so maybe from each of our panelists, we can do a concluding thought on our discussion and the U.S. market, discussion. Paul, do you want to start us off?
Certainly the big one is the shipping space, this IMO offtake. Fingers crossed, say a bunch of prayers this October that goes through. That way we'll have job security for the next 20 years.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, no, just always optimistic about this industry is doing the right thing, providing a service that is good for the communities it's in and the planet as a whole, like turning waste into energy, which is really what we do. It just makes so much sense. And so I'm confident that we'll continue to navigate any headwinds, and I think there will continue to be existing and new tailwinds that help push us along too. So just want to share a sentiment of optimism.
Great, thanks, John and Matias.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think that being creative, don't just believe in your pro forma, of your project. Don't listen what other people are saying. Look at what you can do, in terms of a developer. Choose the right technology, choose the right company to design, do your right do's on where are you going to locate, where you're going to set one of these plants. Do your due diligence. Don't listen. You got to listen what's going on in the government, but at the same time, you got to be sure that you are optimistic and find other ways how to generate revenues out of these type of projects. We're doing it. We're finding those helping with those performance and those commitments. So if we're doing it, I think that everyone can do it too.
Great, thank you. I'll just share one last slide here as we conclude. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time for joining us today. And for our speakers, Paul Greene from GreeneTec, John Dinneen from Mead&Hunt, and Matias Miguez from Kingsbury Construction. Our Biogas and RNG Online event is taking place on our Biogas Community platform all week, and you're invited to join for free, ask questions, and network with your industry colleagues. Questions in the chat that we did not have the opportunity to discuss will be posted on our event discussion forum, and our speakers will be invited to respond offline. If you're interested in learning more about the biogas and RNG industry in a live setting, upcoming US events include Biogas Americas, hosted by the American Biogas Council, May 18 to 21st in Detroit, Michigan. And if you're interested in the Canadian biogas sector, RNG Forum, hosted by BiogasWorld, takes place April 14 to 16 in Drummondville, Quebec. Thanks.